Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of Squawk Talk on Socialist Telly. We may be in for a truncated program tonight because one of our guests is currently on the phone with our other guest in order to try to be heard because he's having technical issues connecting directly to the call. And the third guest on the show, Steve Headley from the RMT Union, hasn't made it to join us yet. With everything going on between RMT and the disgraceful behaviour of the P&L Ferry Company, then, I imagine he's got his hands full, but hopefully he'll join us at some point before we knock off. Otherwise, we'll have an early finish. But I'm delighted to be joined on screen by Hayden Jones, who is the convener for Unite down there in Coventry, where there is a big dispute going on with a notionally Labour-run council. Behaving shockingly towards its workers, following in the steps of Birmingham Council a few years ago that treated its workers in a similar fashion. And with him on the phone, because he can't get connected, is Pete Randall, who is also one of the organisers down there, and but he has been suspended by the council as part of their campaign to try to marginalise union activists down there. So, gents, welcome, and hopefully we'll manage well enough in the course of the conversation to at least let people know what's going on. So do you want to give us a quick rundown as to the history of the dispute down there, what the council's trying to do, and how things have progressed since then?
Yeah, well, I'd like to let Pete lead on that first, please, if you don't mind. Would you like to carry on, Pete?
Yeah, cheers, Hayden, Steve. It probably started back in 2018, where we was going in for a pay rise with the director of the service, to which he said, can we wait up to 18 months, 2 years, if we could do that. And basically, we waited 3 years, in fact, due to the COVID pandemic, to which we were working through the whole time as front services and key workers. We allowed that to happen. It was in, I'd say, back end of June last year, we're having discussions, and into, I'd say, August and September also, to which we tried to look at getting a rise. And the director practically said to Unite and as his representatives, and also the regional officer, that if we were so confident that the members wouldn't take too keenly to his response of basically jog on, go and ballot the members. He didn't think that we could pull two ropes together, is his actual words to ourselves. And lo and behold, we thought we'd only be of his honour and carry out industrial action on a ballot of 98.5% mandate. He didn't think we could do that, so we pulled it off, started getting organised, and then mobilising onto a picket line. We didn't have any intentions to start with to even enter into industrial action, because as you've been aware, it's the very last point of choice, but we were left with no other choice. So on we went on to the picket line. This same director, and also a Labour council, again, I'll reiterate, a Labour council, again, have learned nothing from what went on up the road 6 years ago, and also 3 years ago in Birmingham, to which we had the similar sort of dispute with Unite and their council there, again, the Labour council. So what this council in Coventry have decided to do is carry out defamation of the drivers that are actually on industrial action by saying that we earn £52,000 a year. Now, believe me, Steve, if we're on £52,000 a year, do you think we'll be stood on the picket line? Absolutely no. So it's complete nonsense. Obviously, it's to stir the pot with the public, get the comments of "you greedy bastards," stones, bricks, whatnot thrown at us. There has been a point where an individual was also drove at the picket line, and obviously we've had to carry out the proper procedures in reporting that. But all as the council has done is obviously, delaying tactics, let's say. They own another arm length company called Tom White, which is bringing in scab labour and trying to break the strike by recruiting drivers from another agency to carry out strike breaking, union busting, let's say. There was an interview actually yesterday that our union is sharing all over social media at this moment in time, where this director, by the way, is the director of Tom White Waste, also the arm length company, on a roughly £130,000 basic wage with add-ons. Turned around in the interview and actually stated that they would actually cut out Unite and go and actually carry out individual negotiations with each driver. So on their response the other day to a farcical process with ACAS, and the reason I'm calling it farcical is we were in this process and we were led to believe that ACAS, an individual with 40 years experience of job evaluation, would be carrying out the evaluation process. Lo and behold, it was a HR manager, business manager that actually run the process, with a HR chair, with also a manager in there, myself, and union representatives. But to be clear, we actually challenged through the process of how it was being run. HR manager was being challenging. It wasn't her job. She was there to do the analysis. So she can challenge me by all ways and methods that they can ask me to go into detail about certain questions that they don't understand, by all means. But they was actually quite patronising, challenging, and basically very unprofessional in there. ACAS obviously intervened on a number of occasions, one being the fact that they believed that the process was outdated and that it wasn't really the right, relevant process to be carrying out within the evaluation of our job. We raised a formal complaint around the behaviours of the HR team that was in there, to which I don't believe there's been any response back to the regional officer that was present. So this was on a Friday of last week, the week before. On the Tuesday, they come back with a score after a beefed up job description, to come back scoring less points than we previously had. Not only that, the following day I was unable to challenge the outcome. I was unable to appeal the outcome because the employer decided to suspend me on bogus charges. And I'll repeat that, bogus. It is absolutely astonishing, the stuff that they're coming out with, and I'm under no illusion that I will be able to respond in accordance with that. Just to be clear, the employer's not verbally told me I'm suspended. I found out through social media, first and foremost. Secondly, a letter arrived at my property 2 days ago. So, in fairness, I found out through social media. The union did notify me that a letter had been sent in, but at the time they was unsure whether it was suspension. After reading the letter, towards the end of the letter, it says, once your suspension is lifted. They've also, probably why I'm having these issues as well on my phone, have shut down my laptop, denied me all access, the mobile phone's cut off, ID pass is unable to work in any council building, and I'm no longer allowed access to any council building. So it's pretty clear it's suspension. We have dealt with suspensions in the past, and I've obviously by what I've just detailed there, no issue, but certainly suspension. And it's also Coventry City Council's attempt again at union busting, and it's very clear and adamant from that. Basically, as well, by suspending me, I do believe that they was trying to, let's say, intimidate the picket. We was due to go to next phase of protected 12-week strike, to which we managed to turn around a 94.3% mandate for further action, and that was carried out over 6 days. That we managed to get that response, through very good organisation. Basically, I'm sure you'd appreciate through times that that we've got now with the lovely trade union bill that they tried, again, the government, the Tories tried busting the unions, didn't they? Along with, these Labour councils. So, we managed to get that done. We stood firm, and we're going to continue to stand firm. Although I'm suspended, I will still be on the picket line and carry out what's required, along with Hayden and the rest of the HGV drivers will stand firm, and we'll continue taking the fight as per the percentage on the ballot papers, and we'll stay there until we win. And what a great move by Sharon Graham as well, removing funding from Labour whilst this is being conducted on the workers in Coventry.
Yes, well, I mean, we'll come on to Labour's, the national parties and the national leadership's kind of attitude towards this whole thing. But, there was a comment came in. There's lots of comments of solidarity coming in there, but there was MD Genjin, whoever that is, said, can we please have a massive protest soon? The Tories have been wronging us for far too long. We must bring them down. But it's got to be said again, this is not the Tory party doing this. This is a Labour-run council behaving in this way. And you missed out on the conversation before the programme, Pete, because you were struggling with your tech. But, there's been the case recently with a Labour council victimising the union rep and the actual president of Unison now getting no support from his right-wing union management, shockingly. But we have seen them even go so far in some cases, the Labour writers, to try and criminalise people. I personally attended a trial a couple of years ago in Sandwell, not too far from you guys. And the Sandwell Council had taken a local blogger to court because they didn't like his criticisms. And they claimed that at a protest, he had essentially assaulted the chief executive of the council, screaming abuse and various other things, and that looked quite serious for this guy until he was able to produce a recording that showed that he hadn't said or done any of the things that this Labour council was trying to accuse him of, and the judge kicked it out instantly because it proved that the council was lying in its allegations against him. But that was again a notionally Labour-run council. We've also seen a Labour council go after Afsana Begum down in London, try to get her convicted on charges that were rightly kicked out of court. It's and then let's talk Labour then at the minute. So we saw Keir Starmer probably make himself unwelcome in the city of Coventry ever again by sneering at the idea, and he couldn't keep the contempt out of his voice, that an industrial dispute in Coventry should have any influence on the relationship between the National Labour Party and the unions, which, he rightly got roasted for. But I mean, tell me what the response among your lads and lasses has been on that whole situation.
Well, what I'll say there is, obviously, I actually watched that interview, and I thought, oh my God, that's a bit, below the knuckle. And what I noticed, obviously, it wasn't just us that was angry at that, because obviously it's the Labour Party. What I noticed the next day is that actually it infuriated quite a large part of the Coventry population, because on Coventry Live, on the local sites, like I Love Holbrooks and Coundon and Radford, people were absolutely going furious about it. So he's done himself no favours whatsoever. But I think that is now the general approach from the Labour Party, isn't it? It's more like they're looking down at people now and expecting. I mean, you think they would have learnt their lesson with when they got the good hiding that they got up in Scotland, you know, when they got thrown out there with the tail between the legs, and they've got still got that same attitude down here, and they still haven't realised why they lost the Red Wall, you know, from the whole approach from this party. So for me, Keir Starmer just actually showed the contempt that he's got for voters, especially for for places like Coventry, which he thinks has no significance. But I don't think what he's actually realised is what Coventry started. This isn't about now a pay rise for drivers. What we hear is this nonsense and rubbish from Coventry City Council that if they were to give us a pay rise, it would have cost them over £30 million in equality claims and things like that. Well, that's rubbish. What that's actually demonstrating is that they know full well that the workforce, everyone below the grades, shall we say, of grade 6 and grade 5, are absolutely grossly underpaid. And it will be them people that will be gaining from this. So in theory, what they're trying to do is keep down the wages of even the lowest paid workers at Coventry City Council. So for me, it's quite an eye-opener when a council, and a Labour-run council now, is spending millions of pounds, which they could have actually gave to the workforce in a pay rise. And I don't mean all that for the HGV drivers, but that could have been shared out between the lower grades. But it actually made people's lives, you know, a lot more better and different. But yeah, here we are. We've got a Labour council spending, I'd say, plus 3 million now to break the strike, to keep the wages down. So my question is now, we're having a march and a rally, I should say, on the 26th of March this month in Coventry. And I hope as many people that are hearing this can make it to that march and show your support, solidarity for the poor paying conditions that all workers are having and the suffering that we're all having under this Tory government. But for me, I think it does demonstrate now that we've lost the Labour Party, and it's been lost for a long time. And I keep on hearing this argument that says, oh, we've got to keep on fighting within the inside. Well, surely we've been fighting with the inside of the Labour Party since the 70s. And every time we get along, some right-wing red Tory comes into place, like, you know, your Kinnocks and your things like that, and your Blairs and now Keir Starmer. The Labour Party's lost. Time to get rid of it. And I'm pleased now that Sharon's made that pledge. And we in Coventry on the picket line, we hope that we now can start something through our branch that will actually put a motion forward next year at Unite's rule change to actually put that motion forward now of standing back the affiliation to the Labour Party. Because believe me, brothers and sisters, and believe it well, the Labour Party's lost, and it's been lost a long time. We just haven't realised it. We must be the blindest people in the world to actually realise that the Labour Party's there to represent the working people. Because believe me, here in Coventry, we've learned that's not the case. And
Yes.
George Higgins and Keir Starmer have demonstrated that. And Keir Starmer showed that through his consent and his snigger at Coventry. Well, I'll tell you what, Keir, you'll regret that sneer, mate. Wait and see what that starts with us.
I think, well, yes. And I mean, I can't say, you know, I'm not allowed to say yet which unions and where, etc. is, but there are other unions with disaffiliation votes moving through the pipeline as well at the moment. So it's, you know, his financial woes are only going to get worse. He's already managed to drive the party to the verge of bankruptcy in a couple of years from a healthy financial position.
Yeah.
So tell you what, lads, just give people the details of that march so we can make sure that people get to turn up and join in if they can. So that's on the 26th of March.
It's on the 26th of March, which is Saturday. It's from 11 o'clock till 1 o'clock. Our guest speakers are Sharon Graham, our General Secretary, will be there. We're believing that we have got some other people to confirm, but obviously Anne-Marie Cole-Klein, Jane Nellis, and several others. Sorry, Lee Barron. Yeah.
Where will that start from, folks? And then we can...
that will be congregating in the precinct where the Lady Godiva statue is. It's just around the corner, actually, from the council house.
Right.
Broadgate. And also, obviously, on Tuesday, the 22nd, isn't it, Pete? we're going to be handing our petition in, and I might let Pete pick this up as it goes, because obviously, do you want to take this up, Pete, or do you want me to do it, brother?
No, carry on, mate.
Right. So on the 22nd, we would love people to attend Coventry for the handing of the petition to reinstate and stop the suspension against Pete Randall. So far at this moment in time, there's over 11,000 signatures on that petition, and we're going to be sending that. Also, we've got a link on our site to email George Duggins, to actually request that as well. So we would ask if anybody could come down on the 22nd. All information will be on United's website. We would love for that show of solidarity and solidarity of Pete Randall.
Good stuff. I'll pop that up on the bottom of the screen so people can see.
Sorry, Pete.
Tell Steve I've actually got a copy of the leaflet that I can WhatsApp over to him regarding the 26th demo in Coventry.
Yes.
If it would be helpful for him to share with
Pete.
Share it on.
Pete said he can actually WhatsApp over the leaflet.
Yeah, I could hear. So yeah, pop that over, Pete, and then obviously we'll feature that on Squawk Box as well, so people are aware of what's going on. Yeah, I mean it's well, I'd love to say it's a shocking situation. I would love to be shocked by all this. I'm not the least bit shocked, because I think this is what the Labour right does when they get themselves, attached to power like a set of barnacles,
And for me, Steve, and I'm sorry for cutting in there. I mean, the real eye opener for me was when we thought what was a glimmer of hope, so to speak, where there was an agreement where we could have a meeting with the elected members, because of all this nonsense where they say they can't negotiate with the trade union, which is a load of nonsense, but they're hiding beyond the Nolan protocol. Well, cowardly, I would say, but nevertheless, that's where they're hiding. But anyway, we did have a meeting on the 24th of January, which was attended by by myself, Pete, Mick Shortland, Frank Keogh on behalf of Anne-Marie Kilcline. And obviously that was attended by George Duggins, Pat Heatherton, Richard Brown, and I forgot who else, Pete. Oh, sorry, Martin Reeves. Well, anyway, we was assured at that table by the leader himself, so this is someone that doesn't negotiate, okay, that he's spoken to the officers and that a deal was going to be put down on the table the very next day, that he was confident that the union would accept on behalf of its drivers, okay? This was on the 24th of January. As of yet, no deal's been put down. So the very next day when we had a meeting with the officers, there was no deal, there was nothing, absolutely nothing. And this nonsense around the Christmas working arrangement, and that's the only way I can describe it, that could have actually been settled very, very, very easily. And before we actually went on full strike, myself and Pete and Mick Shortland and Simon O'Keefe, the regional officer, were in full time when we was having our meetings with them. We're in full time discussion. The actual Christmas arrangement we thought was a done deal, but unfortunately, that deal changed. And what I mean by that, there was an agreement that they would offer. Well, the original offer was actually £500. Okay. But anyway, after negotiation, we got them up. The union got them up to £4,000. But the initial offer was to buy out your Christmas. So in other words, you would work that Christmas week. So after Boxing Day, whatever day that fell on, you would work. So there'd be a continuation collection. Okay. So instead of having a 51-week collection, you'd have a 52-week collection. Now, that for us was actually what we thought was a pretty good deal. That would mean for 5 years, okay, you would just work that week and you'd get £4,000. Now, obviously, that's quite a lot of money to some of the, especially the carriers, the grade 3 lads and the grade 4 lads, because their wages are absolutely appalling, right? That was a good deal. But unfortunately, myself and Pete then obviously left that meeting, shall we say, to go on full strike. So we took no part further talks at that moment in time. Then all of a sudden, about 2 weeks later, obviously they've had a change of mind and says, right, what we'll do, we're going to lump in now the 99 agreement. Well, the 99 agreement was a thing that was put in place as a single status. And what it is, it's basically a shield to protect people's health and safety, and that everybody should be treated equally and fairly at all times. And that health and safety must be adhered to. What little health and safety there is in our area must be adhered to. Well, due to the fact now that there's obviously large amounts of black sacks and things like that, our employers decided at that time that they would have the 99 agreement, which would mean that our carriers, not the drivers, our carriers, would then be at danger from needle stick injuries, glass cuts, knife cuts, or whatever sharp instruments can be in their bags. Now, if people say, that never happens, well, believe me, it does. And we've had some very, very serious injuries, okay? Up to the point where someone almost lost an eye and had a broken eye socket and cheekbone. So these are injuries from black sacks. Now, if we're to collect sacks, surely the idea would be to keep it as safe as possible. Them sacks would be clear sacks, wouldn't they? And they would be issued by the council. But unfortunately, the council don't want to do that. But what they'd rather do is take away the 99 agreement and make sure that everybody's health and safety is removed. Like I said, not the drivers. The drivers won't be affected by this. The people that will be affected is our carriers. And they're the ones that are in likelihood of losing their job. Because we've asked, will there be protection for them if they have an industrial injury? Or will they just go through the promoting health? Which means that they could actually end up losing their job through that process. And they said, no, there'll be no different. What we'll do is give extra training. So what they mean by that is, no, we won't take responsibility for it, but we still want you to pick, to carry on with this. So unfortunately, what I would say where we are with our council, if they told me the time right now, I'd have to check it. If they told me it was daytime, I'd have to look out the window, because I can't believe a word that bloody comes out of their mouths at this moment in time. Because the barrage of lies and distruths that they throw out, and how they've set an agenda to demonise their own workforce, which I now believe would be, and I'm sure many other people would believe, is they're trying to have their first step to privatisation. Carry on. We'll fight you on that as well. So for us as a trade union, I think this now will be our, shall we say, our bread and butter, because what we've got here is a council, and what we can't do is allow this council, this Labour council, to set a precedent of further other Labour councils if we have the next government that's a Labour. Because I'll tell you what, if we do, we'll have a harder time with a Labour government than we'll ever have with a Conservative government. And what I mean by that, if a true Labour government came into power, surely the first thing they would do is repeal some of the trade union bills. And I'll guarantee you, I'll bet you my last pound, they will not do anything in that area at all to help trade unions, because they too, like the Tories, want to suppress trade unions and people that want to speak up and protection for their members. That's what the Labour Party is about now. The Labour Party, for me, is the B team. That's what they are. It's a Tory B team. That's all they are. Yeah.
Well, they take positions to the right of Boris Johnson, quite often Keir Starmer, etc. Hayden, I'm going to pause you there for a second if we can, because we've got Steve and we weren't sure if he was going to be able to join us. Steve Headley from the RMT. Steve, it's saying your mic's muted. There we go. Welcome at the programme. Can you hear us all right?
Yeah, I can. And sorry, I was trying to get on earlier and then it wouldn't let me on, and suddenly the link's just opened. So there you are. The wonders of technology.
Yeah, there's Pete from Unite was having similar troubles, but I'm glad you managed to make it on. So I'm not going to say much about what's happened today, which, except that it's been very shocking, because I want people to hear it directly from somebody who knows all the details properly. So give us a rundown, if you can, mate, as to why, what's happened today, what have P&O done, and how's the union responding?
Well, I mean, I was just getting up for my breakfast this morning, and when suddenly I was inundated with phone calls, texts, emails, and I wondered, bloody hell, what's going on? And we soon found out that 800 people had been made redundant by P&O Ferries. No consultation with the union, no negotiation, and just literally arrived on the ships at 7 o'clock this morning, accompanied by security guards with handcuffs. Told our members that they'd have to get off the ships, and they would talk to them once they got off the ship, escorted them to the cabins, threatened to handcuff people if they didn't cooperate. So most people left the shifts, and then when they got to the bottom of the gangplank, they were handed redundancy notices. And these redundancy notices basically give them Hobson's choice, really. It was one, they could either sign the redundancy, which is a slight enhancement, by the 31st of March, or they could just have statutory redundancy. And I mean, it's absolutely shocking out of the blue. And they'd obviously had this plan because they had busloads of workers, casual workers from an agency, and they bust them on as our workers were coming off. So they couldn't didn't let the trade union know what was going on, or the workers, but obviously.
Oh,
Has Pete frozen there?
I think so.
While he unfreezes, I mean, I will say that this notification to the workers came through by Zoom, didn't it? They all got called to a by Zoom meeting.
They were some of them got it by Zoom, some of them were handed letters. It was absolutely appalling. P&O are a company that the government have financed through the pandemic. They've given them a lot of money. P&O just bought 2 new ships that cost 200 million. Of course, they took a hammering through the pandemic. We understand that. But now what they're trying to do is set worker against worker. They're trying to get people from different countries who are going to be on a lot worse terms and conditions and pay, and use them to undermine the people that they've just thrown off the ships. And obviously that's going to cause friction between those two workforces. And the people that have been brought in are going to be super exploited. We've been told that they're going to have to sleep on board. They're not going to have the rest periods our members have. Certainly not going to have the pay that our members have, nor the time off. So this is capitalism, and it's in all its nakedness, isn't it? We have this government trying to tell Russia how to behave about protests in Russia. And in Britain, we've got workers thrown off the ship, threatened to be handcuffed for protesting against their job. And the irony isn't lost, I suppose, on all the trade unionists. If we want to have a one-day strike or 1 hour strike, we've got to give the company notice. We've got to ballot. We've got to give them 2 weeks' notice of what day we're taking the action on, and go through the process. But a company can just turn up with a load of scabs in a minivan, issue out redundancy notices, and get people on the same day.
It's horrific. There's a question in there from Stop the Cuts UK said, how can they claim redundancies if they're just immediately refilling the jobs with cheaper staff? The positions certainly obviously aren't redundant because they're going to be putting other people into them.
So I'm not sure about the legalities. Our legal team are looking at that now, but I mean, this has been done before on Irish ferries. They've come up with the same sort of tactics, and I think it's not even hire and refire, it's hire and don't refire, bring in a different workforce. So they're probably going to justify it on business grounds or whatever. And I'd imagine they've had it checked out with our lawyers, so they've got a good chance of winning it. But I mean, we've got to start, and we will be picketing all the ports tomorrow. We'll have pickets running. The details are on my Facebook page, but we'll have pickets in Hull, in Liverpool, in Larne, and the north of Ireland, and in Dover. So we're going to be picketing those and trying to pressure the company into at least having some a chat with the union, and negotiating about these jobs. I mean, I've never actually seen something this brutal myself. I've seen it in other places, but never in an industry that the RMT organised. We've always had some sort of notice that this is coming, but not on this occasion.
There were reports in the media that RMT members had managed to stay on board some of the ships and were not letting the scab workers get on. Is that still ongoing? Or?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I heard the similar reports, but I'm not sure if it's ongoing now. I think most people were probably intimidated into leaving the ships. To be fair, I mean, when a load of security guards turn up and they're told that they're going to be brought off in handcuffs, I think a lot of people just decide that they leave. But the answer is really I don't know.
It's shock tactics, isn't it? Basically, kind of just move everybody before they really get a chance to understand what's going on and react to it. And
on St. Patrick's Day as well. I mean, I think that I don't think the timing was coincidental.
No. Yeah, I mean, again, I would love to be shocked and surprised. It is shocking behaviour. I mean, it's this kind of thing you expect from some, kind of Labour gang in a out in the middle of nowhere that doesn't give a toss about the law. But this is supposedly a major UK company, just as far as I can tell, and certainly in my opinion, behaving like gangsters. What can people do, mate, to help? Is there a fund? Is there a...
Well, there will be a fund. Yeah, there will be a fund set up, and I'll give details as soon as I know it. But the main thing is if people can get along to those pickets, most of them are starting from 12 o'clock tomorrow in Larne, 12 o'clock tomorrow in Hull. There's going to be a protest at Dover at 12 o'clock. So if people can get along there and support the pickets, that would be fantastic. So we have to really, I think as a movement, we've got to respond to this. We're supposed to be a seafaring country, and now all the sort of false patriotism and jingoism and those people that are beating the war drums, they don't mind sacrificing British workers when it's cheaper to bring in people on inferior terms and conditions and pay. So there's a lesson there for the people that were believing this absolute rubbish from Boris Johnson and his cronies about British jobs for British workers. It's the capitalism doesn't really care what country you're from. It's going to exploit you, and if it can make more money from a Polish worker, a Lithuanian worker, or a Maltese worker, and I think the agency's actually registered in Malta. I don't know where they actually get their members from, the staff from, but it's registered in Malta. If people can make more money out of them, then they're going to do it, and that's the cold reality of a capitalist system.
Yes. So I didn't hear you mention Liverpool on the ones that start tomorrow. Is that coming at
Liverpool as well? Yeah, I think I'm not sure what time they start at Liverpool, but the rest of them are starting at 12 o'clock. I'd imagine Liverpool will be going all day. Liverpool, we've got a big branch down there. It's probably going to be earlier, but I haven't had that.
I'll see if I can get down there and cover some of what's going on.
Yeah.
Is that'll be? You might not know, but that'll be presumably on the Birkenhead side of the water.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I imagine so. I think that's where the big ferry terminal is, at least, anyway. So, okay. Well, obviously, if anybody's watching and they're thinking they want to chip in and help the strike fund in Coventry or in, for the P&O members, then keep an eye out on Squawk Box and on Socialist Telly, and we'll put the details up there.
Can I just say as well, while I'm on, solidarity to all those on strike in Coventry. Absolute disgrace that the so-called Labour Council are doing that, and what it leads us towards, really. I think more and more trade unionists are coming to the conclusion we need our own party. The Labour Party don't fit for purpose. We need to fight for all.
And solidarity to you, Steve. Honestly, we couldn't believe the news when we heard it this morning. When it's gone all over the radio.
Yeah.
And actually, at first, it actually stunned me. I thought, nah, there's no way. I thought they said 80. And I thought, oh my God. And then when you hear it, I thought that's bad enough for 80, but then to hear it's 800. Shocking.
Yeah.
And I think we're living in a society now where it seems to be acceptable to have a race to the bottom. But we're going back to Victorian. The only thing they didn't do today is what they would have done in Victorian times. They just come in with clubs and beat everybody up and chuck them out. That's the only difference now. But that's where we're going back to. That's the values.
Yeah.
Yes. According to Alan Gibbons, who's a Liverpool councillor, he's saying it's 1 o'clock at Port of Liverpool.
Yeah. Most of them are starting in the afternoon.
Yes.
I think it's probably a big ask for people to come up off St. Patrick's Day in the morning.
Yeah.
Yes. If anybody's watching and wants to get there, pick your nearest one and get down there and show solidarity with the workers, because this is,
in fairness, they've already got the scab labour on the ship. They've done that already. So not training them. So we're hoping that they're going to be in dock for about 3 days, where we can hopefully have some effect, turn lorries back and other vehicles supplying it back.
Yes, because the point is, I mean, you might not be working on the ship yourself. You might not be working on the bins in Coventry yourself. But as Kay Smith put it, unless we show those in power that will stand up for each other, they'll walk all over us. Have we learned nothing from history? I think they've learned from history. That's why they're trying these tactics to try and defeat the workers, because I think they probably and rightly sense that the sense of kind of militancy and among workers is increasing. The number of people realizing that they've got to be organised in a union, etc., is as far as I can tell on the up. And they're trying, as they do with other things, to break it before it really gets hold.
Yeah,
gents, absolute solidarity, and obviously anything that we can do on Socialist Telly to help you publicise what you're doing, to rally up support and so on, we're at your disposal. Same for Squawk Box. Is there any other details you need to get across to people? Any other messages you want to get out there before we knock it off? And we'll wind up nice and early tonight, so you can get on, because I'm sure you've all had really busy days.
Well, just to say thank you for the invite on. It's always great to speak to other trade unions and activists, and we appreciate all the help.
Send our solidarity to your members, please, Steve.
Will do. And
the picket line in Coventry, solidarity.
Best.
Fellas, I appreciate that, and if anybody's just wondering, it has been an all-male programme tonight. That's not been by design. We had the women comrades lined up and they got ill, so we weren't able to bring them on. But everybody who's watched, thank you very much for that. If you watched on catch-up, again, watch that. Get yourselves to the websites of the RMT Union and Unite, and fill yourselves in on the details. And if you possibly can get there for the protests tomorrow, in whichever port is nearest to you, then do that, because this is it's class war basically, isn't it? And they're waging war on working people. So get yourselves in there, roll your sleeves up, and let's win it, fellas. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the evening, and pass on our best to the members.
Certainly will. Bye bye.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.